Good day, life science students. Welcome to video lecture episode 14. Today we're going to start and finish section 3, which is fairly brief. And within section 3 there's some main ideas, and we covered these in our last lecture. We mentioned them, and they're in the form of 3 questions, and this was from slide 81. So let me just state those questions. 1. How do organisms produce energy-rich compounds? 2. How does energy flow through ecosystems? And 3. How much energy is available at different levels of a food chain? So let's go ahead and let's get into our discussion. Let's talk about energy. Well, the law of conservation of energy states that energy is not created or destroyed, but only converted into other forms of energy. In most ecosystems, the energy starts with light energy, that being photosynthesis, and converted to chemical energy. If you look on slide 83, I just have a graphic representation. I hope that will help out a little bit about how energy is transferred within an ecosystem. Now let's talk about converting energy. Matter can be recycled again and again. Nitrogen in the dead organism is still nitrogen, even when it passes into the soil and the atmosphere. Energy, on the other hand, is not recycled, but converted from one form to another. Energy is converted from sunlight into chemical bonds. Now, there's 2 processes where this, of course, starts. We have photosynthesis, which is where producers obtain energy from light, and we have chemiosynthesis, where producers obtain energy from sulfur molecules released from cracks in the ground, that being hydrothermal vents, and the food chain of a deep-sea animal starts by feeding on chemosynthetic bacteria. So just showing you the different sources of how energy is converted within different environments. Now let's talk about energy transfer, in particular talk about food chain. Okay, producers begin the food chain. Consumers eat the producers, and energy is transferred now to another organism. Now the correct order for the example that I have on slide 85 is this. It starts with the producer, that being the plant, then the herbivore, which consumes the plant, followed by the omnivore, which consumes the animal, which therefore consume the producer to start with. Now let's just talk about 2 more other brief examples of food chains. One example that I gave on slide 86 is where we see a grasshopper, python, grass, and frog are involved, which of course the grass starts it off, that's the producer, eaten by the primary consumer being the grasshopper, which the grasshopper is then consumed by the frog, and lastly the python, the type of snake, consumes the frog. Now let's look at slide 87 and look at our second example. We have a slug, a bird, lettuce, and a cat. So the order starts in follow. We have first the lettuce, which is eaten by the slug, which is eaten by the bird, and then the bird, which is eaten by the cat. So those are food chains, and that's fairly simplistic and very easy to see. Now let's talk about food webs, which are a little bit more complex and a little bit more representative of a larger scale ecosystem. So a food web is a model that shows all the possible feeding relationships among the organisms of a community. Let's say, for example, grizzly bears, they can eat many different organisms, which include berries, fish, chipmunks, and insects. Well, the berries can also be eaten by birds, insects, and other animals, and the bear, when it dies, its carcass can be eaten by wolves, birds, insects, bacteria, and fungi. As you can see, a food web is much more complex, but it's also what we tend to see normally in nature. Now let's close our discussion talking about energy pyramids. An energy pyramid shows the amount of energy available at each feeding level in an ecosystem. The bottom of the pyramid represents all the producers. It is the largest because it has the greatest amount of organisms and contains the most energy. As one moves up the levels, the number of animals are less, which we would expect. Only about 10% of the energy available is transferred to the next level, which means less energy would be available to the hawks, snakes, and other carnivores, as we see on the image on slide 89. And then I just concluded with a fun little image on slide 90. Just thought it'd be a nice little place to stop and smile. If you have any questions about what we covered in today's lecture, please leave it in the comments below. Email me. Just reach out to me any way you can. All right? Take care. Hope this has been helpful. Goodbye.